Hello everyone, welcome to Next Minds Academy series of lessons. So today we are going to talk about indices. So most times we have made expressions where we're multiplying same number similar many times. So for example, if we meet a number like 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3, so this same number can be written as 3 to the power of 3. So because we are multiplying 3 thrice, so we give it a power of 3. Or if you are multiplying 3 4 times, in that case, it becomes 3 to the power of 4, which is written like this. So we read it as 3 raised to the power of 4, or in this case, we say 3 raised to the power of 3. So the power is what we call an index. In plural, we call them indices. And the number 3, that is in 3 power 4, we call it the base. So if we have 3 to the power 4, so 4 here, this 4 is what we call an index. And then the 3 here, this one is what we call the base. So basically it means that an index is the number of times we multiply the base. An index is the number of times we multiply the base. So in this case, it means that we multiply 3 4 times. So the index is the number of times we multiply the base. So if you have a number like 2 to the power of 5, so here it means that we multiply 2 5 times. And this will be similar to us writing 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 5 times. So if you have a number like a power 3, I will multiply a 3 times. This will be a multiplied by a multiplied by a. That is a 3 times. So basically, that is what indices are. So they are constituted of what we call a base and an index. So basically under indices, we shall be looking at numbers which have powers, or what we call indices. Okay, so let's look at the laws of indices. They are laws which govern us when performing various operations in indices. When we are adding, when we are multiplying indices, there are laws which will govern us. So let's start with the multiplication law. So according to the multiplication law, when we are multiplying any two index numbers, what we do is we maintain the base and then we add the powers. Maintain the base and add the powers. So for example, if we have a number like in this case, we have a squared multiplied by a power 3. So under normal circumstances, this would be similar to having a times a being multiplied into a power 3, which is a times a times a. So then you'd go ahead, open the brackets here, and then have a times a 5 times. And finally, you'd have your answer as a power 5. But this is when the powers are small. But the law of indices, that is the multiplication of law, it helps us to solve bigger powers. So for example, according to the law, when you have multiplying two numbers of the same base with powers, we maintain the base and then we add the powers. So in this case, a squared being multiplied with a cubed, or a power 3. So what we do, we maintain the base, that is, we maintain the a, and we add the powers, that is 2 plus 3, such that the final answer will be a to the power of 5. So this is what we do according to the laws of indices. So we'll look at some more examples. If we have a squared, the summary of this law, that it says if you have a to the power m being multiplied with a to the power n, you keep the base and then you add the powers, that is keep the base which is A and add the powers M plus N. So this is the multiplication law of indices. An example is when you are multiplying 4 squared with 4 cubed. So what we do, keep the base which is 4 and then add the powers. So we shall end up with 2 plus 3 and the answer will be 4 to the power of 5. 4 to the power of 5. Okay, so let's look at the division law. The division law. So the division law, it also helps us to look at numbers which have, or index numbers with bigger powers. So according to the division law, when we are dividing numbers which have a same base but different powers, according to the division law, for example, a power 5 divided by a power 3, for it tells us that we keep or maintain the base and we subtract the powers. So maintain the base, which is a, subtract the powers, that will be 5 minus 3. So the answer that we get will be a to the power 5 minus 3, which is a to the power 2. Okay, so to summarize the division law, the summary says that if we have a to the power m being divided to a to the power n, what you do is that you keep the base and then you subtract the powers, that is a power m minus m. So this is the summary of the division law of indices. Maintain the base and subtract the powers. Maybe we look at an example. An example is a to the power 7 divided by a to the power 2. So what we do is we maintain the base, which is a, and then we subtract the powers, which is 7 minus 2, and the answer is a to the power 5. Okay, so that is the division law of indices. So let us look at how we deal with powers. So if you look at powers, if you have a matrix basically whereby a power is being multiplied to another power. So for example, if we have a squared, in this case, being multiplied with a power of 3. So what we do is we maintain the base, which is inside the bracket, and then we multiply the powers such that it becomes a power 2 times 3, and the answer is a to the power of 6. So according to this law of powers, it tells us that if you have a power m, and then you are introducing another power outside, which is an n, what you do is you keep the base and then you multiply the powers, that is m times n, or you can call it a to the power m, mn, like that. That is the power law for indices. M multiplied by n. Okay, so basically there are these 3 basic laws of indices. There is the multiplication law, which says when you're multiplying indices with the same base, when you're applying numbers which have the same base but different powers, maintain the base and add the powers. And then when you're dividing, the division law, when dividing same base, different powers, keep the base and subtract the powers. And the power law, which says when you're multiplying, keep the base and multiply the powers. So these 3 are what we call the basic laws of indices. These 3 are basic laws of indices.